There is a lot of talk about Billy Napier being on the hot seat this year, which, listen, is certainly understandable after the last 2 seasons of football at the University of Florida. But should he be on the hot seat? This week, Napier got a bit of a endorsement almost from somebody that you probably wouldn't expect it from. Endorsement might be a strong word, but I certainly find the comments interesting. I'm going to show you a clip here in a moment, and then you can decide for yourself. But Mullen talked to Aaron Murray on the Snaps podcast. He started out talking about how UF as an organization just didn't realize how far behind they had fallen. He talks about facilities and how they got that caught up, and now they're asking those same donors to double down with NIL. But then on the question of Napier and how much time he should have, he said this.
And I think one of the things that Florida has to do is find stability within the program.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you can say all you want, let's put Billy Napier on the hot seat this year. Well, you're going back to not creating stability within the program.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been the issue to let it build. But I think if they can create stability within the program, if Billy Napier is the answer and everybody believes that long term, that he's the guy, well, then make sure in today's world, give him the time to go do that.
Yeah.
Well, it is. And I think that's a recurring cycle, because if you're looking at it saying, okay,
Yeah.
what coach has been given the time to build that program at the University of Florida?
Yeah.
Really to go put the stamp on it. I still think it takes into several more years, right? And you look at who are the successful programs over the last however many years, and if it's not Billy Napier, who is it going to be that you're going to sit there and say, we're done. We're all in.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a long-term deal.
All right. So he said some pretty interesting things here. All right. One of his biggest points is that Florida as an organization, so take Billy Napier out of the equation, bigger than him, as an organization from top down, needs to create stability. Meaning they need to get a coach in that they are going to let build it. It takes time. And, this was mentioned in the video, but I clipped it out due to time. But Dan Mullen acknowledges that it's not always 3 years. And we currently live in this cycle of coaching where most top places, it's 3 years or you're out, right? You only get 3 years to try to change a program. If it's not Billy Napier, then who are they finally going to give the time to turn it around? And, I think that these are all really interesting points. Florida does need to create stability. Think about the negative recruiting coming out this year. Coach Napier's going into year 3. Things don't look like they have massively turned around from when he got the job on paper from the outside, right? So that's going to be used against him recruiting wise. That's going to make it harder for him to do his job. Does he have the resources that some of these other programs have? Out loud, we say we do, but do we? I don't know. I think that there's some internal controls that Napier just doesn't have that handicap him a little bit. And Dan Mullen is familiar with that. And his biggest point, though, is if it's not Billy Napier, if you've decided Billy Napier is no longer the guy, who is the guy, and will you give that guy the time that he needs? Because Florida has been in this cycle where every 3 years we fire a coach, create that instability once again, and hire somebody else, but don't give them the time to fully turn the program around. So is now the time that we're going to actually allow the full rebuild to happen? Okay, now listen. Napier made it slightly more difficult on himself with some tough losses the first 2 years. Think about Vandy, Arkansas, losing to Missouri after having them at 4th and 17. And, biggest issue overall probably is being 1-5 against rivals. If they were 7-5 and 7-5 in the last 2 years, this seat is probably not as hot, right? And I also think that the disorganization on the field likely isn't helping his cause at all either. When you think about the special teams blunders that has happened under Billy Napier the last couple of years, doesn't stream organization to me. And then the penalties. Florida is historically a penalized team. That's, you can go back pre-Spurrier days and you're still finding a penalized team. But this Florida team cost themselves time and time again the last 2 years with just really unfortunate penalties, boneheaded penalties, things that turn games around. And none of those things are helping Coach Napier's argument, to continue this rebuild. But ultimately, I think that Coach Mullen is right here. We are stuck in this every 3-year cycle. And I just don't know what the answer is. If Napier starts out his tenure with 3 straight losing seasons, I don't see how the university retains him. But short of a mass exodus, do you think Napier is most likely to turn things around starting in 2025? I personally have to lean that way. I think he is, especially with him stocking talent like he has been on the recruiting trail. I expect more of the same for the 2025 cycle. And it just feels like he's just on the cusp of getting over that hump. If Florida is all in on Napier, then they have got to give him the time. But they are certainly in a tough spot this year. I get it. This is the hardest schedule in college football next year. Last season didn't really improve on the season before for Coach Napier. Now, it did on the recruiting trail, but not in the win-loss columns. They go into this incredibly difficult season. The roster is mainly Napier's guys. Is he able to do enough to keep the university happy so that he can move into year 4? It's going to be tough. And honestly, I know a lot of you are probably shocked that Dan Mullen seemed to be advocating for Napier to get more time, but this is not something that is actually surprising to me. I had several conversations with Coach Mullen when he was the coach at Florida prior to anything going south, when he was winning games, talking about the exact things he talked about in this interview, where Florida was behind on facilities. When Dan Mullen got to UF, he got Scott Strickland on a plane and he went and visited every SEC school in the country so that Strickland could see with his own eyes how far behind UF was on all of their facilities. Mullen is the reason we have what we have now, this gorgeous standalone facility. He had a big part in those dorms that the football players now live in. There were many things that were actually from Mullen's program that we are now reaping the benefits of, but it was a day late and a dollar short. Had we had these brand new facilities 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it really could have made the difference. But right as Mullen's tenure was coming to an end is when this NIL tenure was really ramping up, and kids care less about those amazing facilities than they did when Mullen took the job and convinced UF to get him. But now UF has to go back to those same donors who they just hit up to build these gorgeous state-of-the-art things and say, hey, thanks for building us those, but now we need money for something totally different because what this 18-year-old recruit wants looks different than it did just a few years ago. I think that these are issues that Dan Mullen dealt with at UF when he was the head coach. I think he sees that Coach Napier is dealing with some of the same problems. That tells me maybe the problem isn't Coach Napier. Maybe it's bigger than him. And maybe it's time to do things differently. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Maybe this should be the time the University of Florida actually allows a coach the time it takes to build a program the right way in this era of football. It looks different today than it looked 3 or 4 years ago. It's one of those things that you've got to build the plane as you fly it because the rules are ever changing. Maybe it's time to let Coach Napier see the process through. I don't know what the right answer is. And what Florida does is going to eventually impact hiring that we get to do down the road. Who wants to come here if they know that this is how you cycle through coaches? That no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how the landscape of college football changes at the drop of a hat, you get 3 years. What are your thoughts? Let's talk about Mullen's comments, Napier's outlook, and the program's stability as a whole down below. I think it is a fascinating conversation, and listen, it's the off season, so it makes sense to have it now. I appreciate all of you for tuning in, and as always, go Gators.